Thank you very much, Dawn.
Who's evaluating?
We do need evaluators.
5 to 7 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's evaluating you?
When would you mind? I'm doing one this.
I need an evaluator.
How do you?
Yes.
Oh, wait, here, let me.
Is someone
open it up.
evaluating Dr. Jones?
Just give me a second.
Ready? Would you like to evaluate?
I'll take care of it, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Dr. Jim? Yep, okay, it's me.
That was sort of fun. Thanks for that. Thanks for allowing me to-
It took me a while to.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you sit down at home to watch TV, what channel do you watch? What's your number one go-to channel?
Annie.
Home Shopping Club? ESPN? HGTV? Acceptable? That's perfectly acceptable. In my house, we watch TLC. I like to refer to TLC as the let's throw it against the wall channel. Because they'll really arguably make a show about anything and just see if it goes, basically, right? So I'm always amazed and surprised when I sit down to watch my TLC channel because I never quite know what I'm getting myself into. Which explains the quandary I now find myself in. Addicted to yet another TLC channel. Name of this particular show, in case you haven't heard of it already, is My 600-Pound Life. Anybody heard of it? Anybody heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God. This is the most amazing show ever. The premise of the show is actually very simple. A film crew follows an individual around for 12 months, for a year. And the individual that they follow starts out at least, although it could be much more, weighing 600 pounds. Now that's a pretty easy number to say, but it's a stunning number to see. For the human form to actually have 600 pounds on it, you sort of have to turn into the Michelin Man. And it's whether or not you're male or female doesn't really matter, and arguably at that point in time it doesn't really much matter anyway because you're sort of round. It's a fascinating show. And I find myself being drawn into every episode going, how the hell did you get here? What happened? So the show starts off with some fairly grim statistics. People who reach this weight have a 5% survival chance. It's really grim. And if you think about it, if you're carrying 600 plus pounds, I mean, that's 600 pounds on your heart, 600 pounds on your liver, potentially you're immobile at that point in time. I mean, it's a downhill slide. So you start out from a bad place. The whole show spends probably about a third of the show on the backstory for these people, talking about how'd you get there and what's your life like now. And the backstory, we start to see some rapidity in what's going on here. It's sort of fascinating. Generally, they were growing up. A lot of them were abused by a family member or lost a family member, or the slightly more tricky one, didn't feel close to a mom, didn't feel accepted by their mother or their father or something like that for whatever reason. And what happens after this traumatic event is they find solace in food. And they use food to sort of like build a wall between them and the rest of the world. And not just a little bit of food, apparently lots and lots and lots and lots of food, okay? It's pretty amazing stuff. It's interesting because they show some back pictures of the individual as they became larger and larger. These kids are cranking into high school at about 200, maybe 250 pounds. Doesn't matter boy or girl. They're all sort of there. And, you look at them in those pictures and it's like, I think I went to high school with some of those people. They're large. They're not out of control yet, but they're pretty large. And it's interesting because then, maybe go like 2 or 3 years after high school, they're up to probably about 400 at that point in time. And they keep going, right? It's amazing the transformation that actually occurs in these people. It's very interesting. A number of them lose mobility. They're in bed. That's it. They're not getting out of bed. They do not have the ability to walk. They may be able to get up and with a walker or a wheelchair or something like that, get to the bathroom and then get back, but that's it. So life becomes whatever apartment or house or whatever they're currently living in. And then, of course, because this is TLC and because it's TV and because this is really why you're watching the show, right? they show them eating, right? And it's amazing the amount of food the 600, 700-pound person's putting away. It's funny, there was one lady, one episode I saw, she said, well, I don't like to eat in front of my parents because it makes them sad, so I wait till my parents go out, and then I call for pizza. And the pizza showed up, it was 3 large pizzas, and then she also got the brownie pizza. You know the brownie pizza, you've heard of it, you've never actually had it, have you, right? But you know about it. Well, guess what? Apparently Domino's is selling to people who weigh 600 plus pounds. But she got all these pizzas, and then she ate them all.
Oh.
She ate 3 large pizzas and brownie pizza. Anyway, so apparently, these people have realized that they're dying, basically. So they reach out to a gentleman by the name of Dr. Now. His name's actually much longer. He's Iranian, okay? But he specializes in treating morbidly, bad if you have a technique called morbidly obese people. So they show up and they meet with Dr. Now and go, hey, I've got a problem. He goes, hell yes, you've got a problem. Very first thing he tells them is, hi, here's a diet for you. It's 1,200 calories, low carb, and I want you to lose 50 pounds, and I'll meet with you again in a month. Remember, this is the person who's putting away 3 pizzas in a setting. Now they've just been put on a 1,200 calorie diet.
That's crazy.
And you can imagine what happens at the end of that month. They meet with Dr. Now and he goes, so what the hell happened? You lost 4 pounds. All right? They're like, oh, you know, I had some emotional setbacks this month. And he says, no, try again. And it's interesting because they're with whoever their caregiver is, because they need to have a caregiver, and that person is an enabler. Who do you think's going and getting the fast food? Who do you think's actually providing this 600-pound person with all their food? It's the mom or the wife or the husband, you know, and they've just gotten in this routine where they just feed the beast. But anyway, so Dr. Now yells at them too. Anyway, if they can lose enough weight, and generally they get their act together and can lose enough weight, Dr. Now is willing to do weight reduction surgery. Interesting, fascinating stuff. What they do is they go in and they take out 80 to 90% of the stomach. They turn the stomach into a sleeve. I think they also bypass part of the small intestine so you don't absorb as much. And so you can only eat small amounts of food, and it sort of basically drops through the system, as I understand it, right? And if you eat too much food, you start throwing up. So people go into Dr. Now and go, Todd, every time I have a meal, I'm throwing up. And he says, okay, it's because you're eating way too much. But actually, most of these shows end at a very happy point. These people have lost like 200 pounds. And they've got their life back together. What's really cool about the show is sometimes they go back to somebody who had a success and they follow them for another year as they continue to lose more and more weight. So here's something fascinating. When you're this big and you lose that weight, you become this big. But that skin does not go away. So the people who slim down like 400 pounds, which is pretty incredible, the one desperate thing they want in the world is skin removal surgery. And the reason is because they're lifting up these flaps of skin and cleaning it. Yeah, so it's not funny. So if they can get their weight down far enough, Dr. Now will give them skin removal surgery. So it's TLC. We go into the operating room. Let's go see the surgeon. And so they remove immense sheets. And what they do, because this is the best part, they take everything they remove, put it in a bucket, and then they weigh it. The last one I saw, 56.5 pounds of skin was removed from the lady. Oh my God. And of course, and you do look like a Frankenstein after that, right? Because they basically cut you in half and took all your skin off, right? And so they have to stitch you up and stuff. It's amazing. People are very happy afterwards. Their life gets back together. They get active, they get married, they want to have kids, all stuff. So the reason I watch the show is because it starts in such a bad place, and it always ends up in a good place. So I say TLC, you got me hooked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jim. Wow, what an interesting speech. Who would ever think